Welcome to the Wally Show Aftercast, all the stuff we did not get to during the course of the show today. It is Friday, so we'll be doing a little weekend plans because that's always fun.
Yeah.
I'm fresh off of my coffee. I'm down on my dessert sips. I always hold back a little bit of like food that I'm eating that I like for like that one last bite that you love or that one last sip of something that you love. I call it the dessert sip or the dessert bite. But I've made it through the entire thing. I find that an extra large coffee gets me through the whole show if we get it at about an hour in. And then I'm good to go.
Because this was delivered at 7:15, 7:20-ish.
Because Gavin went to the. I always complain about the Dunkin near us, like not being good. But then they have this one girl in there that's great. But apparently she wasn't there. I'm assuming she quit because it was all closed, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I think she probably runs the ship because the lights were on inside. There was one singular car up front. The drive-through was backed up.
Oh wow.
And I was just like, I'm gonna see what's going on. And then I pulled the door, wouldn't open. And I'm like, okay, boom, we're out of here. Because we used to deal with that.
Was
for
her
a long
truck
time.
there? Was it a white?
No.
If it was a white sedan, you made the right call.
It was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
so.
if it's white can't park guy, you don't want to. Yeah, that guy's. I love him in the Lord, but he's useless at his job.
But it felt like, because I went to the other one across, 7 minutes away, and it felt like everybody who went through that Dunkin saw that it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
It felt like everyone went to this other one.
Yeah.
Which I get, not super far away, and if you need your coffee, like you do,
So
it looked like everyone was there, and I think I beat a lot of them to it, because by the time I was leaving, maybe 30 people in that building.
I think I might have zeroed in on why I was sick yesterday too. I think it might be my kidneys. Yeah, I think I might.
Why?
So
They're bothering you?
Yeah, I'm
classic
getting
culprit.
pain in my kidney, and usually they make my stomach sick too. It's a little bit different this time, the kind of sick it was, but like, now I'm getting the pains in my back, and so I'm like, dadgummit, another round of this coming, but that's okay.
How often do you say that happens?
Like a few times a year, now.
Because I would say it happens at least once a month.
Yeah, well, I think it's like the same stone, but like it flares up, like it hasn't moved all
Why
the
can't
way.
they get it out?
I
Is
don't
it just
want
a
to.
cow in the field? Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't want to go through the surgery again to do it. It's like because they'll eventually, the ones I have will eventually pass, but you just have to enjoy that process.
But speaking of Dunkin today, you've always had the beast. It's Trinity now when we go extra large.
Extra large, yeah.
But it seems like we might have found Betty's go-to
I
drink.
let
Did you finish
Gavin.
it?
No.
Oh.
I should get a small.
A small is your size.
Yeah. I let Gavin make my coffee order. I just told him, I said, I want it to taste like coffee.
Ice cream.
Ice cream, yeah. And he ordered a macchiato with caramel drizzle.
Yep. So caramel macchiato, 3 pumps of caramel swirl, and just their normal macchiato recipe. Mm-hmm. So I think that
was really good.
That's what we might do for you now on.
I did not care for that one. I tasted it.
No, you didn't.
It was really bad to me. It was like bitter and really coffee. Mine tastes like candy. But then Gavin got one, which was their normal.
The Dunkin' latte?
Yeah,
and
it wasn't
was
bad.
Decaf.
Yeah.
Was too sweet.
I understand that it was too sweet, but I think that there's a 2/3 majority in this room that agrees that it tastes more like the coffee ice cream.
What you were wanting, like melted coffee ice cream.
Yeah, and y'all are typically wrong, so I guess that checks out.
Okay, well there's that thought.
That's fine.
That's a minority opinion in the room, but that's okay.
1 out of 3.
So, well, I guess we'll get to weekend plans in a minute because I know what Betty Rock's weekend plan is for at least Saturday.
Yeah.
Gavin and I are not working. This is one time. There's a lot of reasons it's great to not be a lady. This is another one because we are not allowed at the Reclaim event. So very excited about that.
Genuinely, if you could go to support one of your best friends in the world, coworker.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go.
Oh, good. Okay. No, me neither.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And it's not that I wouldn't support
do it
you
for us.
because I wouldn't want you to think.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
I was asked to go, and I said absolutely not. I will not go. That's true. I was asked to go.
By
some bosses that they wanted me to help out with the compassion part of it. And they said, hey, you do this a lot. Would you ever want to go do this? Because I love compassion. I was on a compassion trip when this all came up. And I said, 100% absolutely not. And they said, why not? I said, because the girls have this. Even if it's, and I know you're not suggesting this out of their inabilities. It was just like, hey, let's, throw everything at the wall to make sure that compassion gets served. But it's like, that would be seen as me as not having confidence in them. And I said that would be so detrimental to this event, and it would really make the girls mad at me.
Oh.
And, and I'm like, absolutely not. Oof. And so I shot that down instantly, and then it came back around again as another conversation, and I said 1,000,000,000% no. Not that I don't love compassion.
They better not have been asking you after they asked me.
What do you mean?
Because I'm doing the pitch.
Oh. Awkward. No, I'm just kidding.
They better not have asked you after they asked me. Then I'm going to be angry.
No, I don't know. I don't know what the timeline was. I think they were wanting. I think it probably was that they had you doing it, but I think what they wanted to do was have you tell stories and stuff, and then me close, like be a closer, because there's a different skill in that, but it's also awkward as all get out. I don't like being the person that is charged with like closing and like having to do, in essence, the hard sell. Like it's really awkward live. Like I do it on the radio all the time because it's just it's more natural there. But when you're in an event, some of the people that are good at this, they're really good at going, okay, now here's 20 packets. I'm not stopping till all 20 of these people are taken care of. Yeah, that's
and that
it.
Doesn't go over well either.
No,
salesman stuff.
But there are people that do pitches for compassion in multiple other places that are good at that. And I think what they were trying to do was keep you out of that place and having to fill that role, because you would not enjoy that, and I would not even enjoy that. And so I think that was what the conversation was. And I'm like, if you want a hard type close, you need to bring in somebody that you guys know that that's what they do. You know, if that's where your head's at on it, because none of us would be like super comfortable with that. We want to just share the stories about why it works and why it makes a difference from our own perspective, you know, kind of thing. So anyway, I won't be there.
All right.
What do you got, Rock?
Oh, okay. Okay, so I found a list of celebrities that people claim give off a vibe of, I sold my soul to the devil.
Oh, okay.
So I want to see what you think about these. I sold my soul to the devil.
Interesting vibe.
Nicolas Cage.
He definitely.
He didn't make the list.
He didn't.
He did.
Who would make the list for you?
Oh, sold their soul.
I can tell you one. Christopher Walken.
Yes, creepy. Yes.
Are we talking about
He gives those vibes.
Oh, okay. So we're talking about like just creepy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Steve
okay.
Buscemi.
Yeah.
Because there's no explanation for him being successful in Hollywood.
He's goofy.
Other than he sold his soul. There's no, he should have never been successful. Same with Michael W. Smith.
Macaulay Culkin.
Macaulay Culkin.
Yes, that's another good one.
Probably word.
Now he does because he's like creepy.
Yeah.
Creepy
No.
Culkin.
He's married to Brenda Song.
No, he's like married
From
with a
Disney
kid.
Channel?
From London Tipton.
I'm glad they found love.
I know,
That's
right?
great.
It's cute.
Who's on the list?
Who made the list? Jared Leto.
Oh my goodness.
I would agree with that. He
I don't
played
like
the
him
Joker.
anymore.
He's in 30 Seconds to Mars.
He played like a vampire movie a few years ago for Marvel. Terrible.
Oh, yes, he did.
Morpheus.
Yeah, Morpheus.
Ugh.
I saw that, and because I like Jared Leto as an actor, but I did not like that movie. I was like, it's creepy.
Was that the reason you didn't like it? Because it was creepy?
I just poorly done. Bad writing.
Yeah.
Creepy. Again, vibe
Another
was just
forced thing in the universe.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, okay. Keith Richards. And mainly just because he's 80.
Yeah.
Golly,
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know. He's so he
Just lie down.
he
son.
has done everything wrong to his body.
Yeah, he's still
and
alive.
yet he's still kicking.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Does not make
Like
sense at
how
all.
he's still alive is shocking.
I love like you when you hear like the old ladies that are like 100, like, how did you live? Well, brandy every day.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah.
what?
A bowl of ice cream every night.
Yeah.
Pack of cigs.
Logan Paul.
Oh,
Yes.
Logan
Who
Paul.
is this kid?
We saw him on TV.
I know, but I
earlier.
don't know anything
Okay.
about him, and he's kind of creepy.
Yes.
He and his brother were YouTube like influencers, YouTube stars for a while, and then they had that kind of fall apart on them, and so Logan had to rebrand himself, and he got into fighting, like boxing. He's the one that boxed Mike Tyson with that sham of a fight.
That was Jake.
Or Jake Paul, sorry, yeah. And so, but Jake and Logan now are back doing a TV show together.
Yeah. And if you're ever at a gas station and you see those Prime drinks, kind of like in the Gatorade, Powerade section, that's their drink. Big deal.
Okay, so they started that?
A lot of people do.
Well, let me ask you,
drink
why
those.
do people like them?
You remember how I showed you that video a few days ago of that guy who has like a really hyper masculine morning routine?
Yes.
And it's just, you can almost watch it and admit that you know this is terrible, or that they are a
Faking
breed
it.
of people that are a little like very fake, hyper masculine, just over the top and big.
Ugh.
But for some reason, there's things that are like, we know they're bad, but we do watch it.
It's like that Jack Dougherty
Why?
kid. Like, why? It's just excess money, and I've got more money, and I waste it on things. And for some reason, I still watch his videos. I watch him to hate him, basically. But and I do every time.
Every time.
But to
And it's
me,
bad.
as someone who has no idea who Logan Paul is,
Yeah.
what he does, just looking at him, he comes across as creepy to me.
He's just,
And I can't say why.
It's hard to understand.
That sounds very unchristian.
But
I
it really
apologize.
did. It really.
I bet he
shocked.
does.
Stop it.
I bet he does some good stuff in this world. But he had this video a really long time ago that really like soured people to him, because he was filming in China and he was like walking through the woods, and there was just like
I
Yeah.
remember
You
you guys know what I'm
that.
talking about? I almost don't want to say it like out loud.
No, it's
Yes.
the place where people go to
Yes.
unalive themselves
Yes.
in
Very
China.
dark.
Yes.
And he went there, but why did he go there? Why
I
was
think
To get
partially.
clicks?
And he
I think
shot
it
a
was just-
video of it.
and then he posted it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and-
to get clicks.
Yeah.
Like that.
That's
That
bad.
comes across as so insecure that you need so many people to tell you how valuable you are that you'll do those things.
Yeah.
It is an interesting thing, though. Like, okay, I think you look at people's motivation probably, and you're judging his motivation, because maybe he was trying to bring light to a serious thing that's happening in the world, and everyone took it wrong. No, I have no idea.
Okay.
But no, like if a news agency went there and went, this is going on in China, there's a place where people go to commit suicide, then people were like, that's shocking, that's horrible. I think it's the tone in which he did it,
Yeah.
probably. Because if you were going there to be like, I cannot believe this happens, and you shed light on it, that's one thing. So I guess it's the intention and the execution, like how, poor choice of words, but how you choose to do the story, I think that would matter.
Another one that made the list was Mr. Beast. Does he come across as
No.
I sold my soul
No,
to
I
the
think
devil?
I think
vibes?
he's a product of the here's all this money, but the kid does
Good with
good
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like he's like heals people. He planted like 80 wells in Africa.
Yeah.
Like he does really good things. He just has a lot of money.
Yeah.
Finally, Kanye West.
Yeah.
I think that
one's tough.
That one is tough because I think I've told you, Potties, that I've gotten really into Candace Owens and her podcast, and she's close friends with Kanye West.
Is she really?
Yeah, and when I see the stuff that Kanye West does, I don't get it, and it comes across as dark and odd.
Well, it's funny how she's exposing everybody,
Yeah.
but she's friends with him. He would be ripe for the picking for her
And
to do the expose
something
on
could happen there. I don't know
if he
but-
crosses her.
Yeah, I don't really know, but it's just a little odd. I wouldn't say he gives those vibes, but he gives someone who is really dark and struggling.
Who was the last person that she was going at that you were telling me about?
Harvey Weinstein?
No.
Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds. Okay, so
Yeah.
she goes in really hard on him, and I get it for the Blake Lively part. Like, stay on that. But then she gets into like his personal life and things like that, and you're like, why does that matter?
Because Ryan Reynolds has a big say in what happened between Blake Lively, his wife, and Justin Baldoni.
Sure.
Ryan Reynolds wasn't just standing to the side watching it all happen. He actually played a part in making it worse and really being a bully.
But stay on that. But like she got into like his sexuality and things like that, where you're like, that's low for you as someone who is supposedly a really good journalist, and she does her research. She and when she was at the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro does his research, and I respect that because it's way more than I know, and so, but like I think she is stepped down with some of the things she's adding into stories and making an issue that really shouldn't be part of that.
You might be right. Yeah, you might be right.
But I love it.
But well, yeah, that too. But also, I think she's also painting a picture of when we get to the case.
Right.
Hopefully, we'll get to the case.
Like a year from now.
She's painting a picture of his character,
Sure,
and who he is, and she's bringing light to the fact that he isn't what they've created. I think what it is it comes down to she's an 8 on the Enneagram. She has to be. She loves justice and she takes up for the underdog. And she felt like Justin Baldoni was the underdog. And so she's speaking for him. And she saw that Ryan Reynolds is bullying him.
Right.
So she's going to do everything possible to take him down.
And then what do you do if you're wrong? And Baldoni was a big part of it, because the Justin Baldoni, I've lived my life long enough to know that very rarely, whether it's this story, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a business partnership breaking up, very, very rarely is it all one person's fault and what was said that way. It's always shades of gray.
I'll give you that, but have you read any of the website?
No. I haven't dove on it like
I would
you did.
say that, there is gray, but also I don't know any case where a lawyer took all the receipts, screenshots of emails and texts, and put them all on a website for everyone and their moms to read. I don't know whenever that has happened before in the past. And so while, yes, Candace could be wrong about a few things, I think she has the humility to admit when she's wrong, because she has before in the past. But I also think that when she states something, she's not going to state it just offhand without doing the research.
Sure.
She does the research.
Yeah, I think that... Yeah,
and she did that whole thing about Brigitte Trogneau, and that all ended up true.
I think that, I definitely think that she, but again, like the Brigitte Trogneau thing was like
why does it matter?
Yeah, like
it matters because the U.S. has a relationship with France, and France is also a big thing that stirred Candace on was with the Olympics. I guess they were hosted in France, the last ones. And they did that opening ceremony where it was the Last Supper.
Yeah.
It looked like the Last Supper, but it was very
centric.
Pro.
Yeah.
And they claimed that it was not making fun of the Last Supper.
Right.
Whereas it's hard to believe that it was not.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And she proves, if you watch the series, that she's taking them down. She's trying to prove what Brigitte Trogneau is because of the influence they have politically with America. And if you can, and also too, with all of the bad things that are happening over in France when it comes to children and adults, like she wants to call it out for what it is and stop hiding in the dark.
Right.
Like she's
so
not in.
I commend that.
Because some people, I think, they get into this world and their goal is like, I'm going to tear these people down.
Right.
And I think for her, it feels more revelatory as opposed to just tear people down for the sake of tearing people down and getting clicks. Now she is out on her own, right? Like she's not under the Daily Wire. She does need clicks, and it's hard because something like that, you saying all that makes sense in terms of why it matters. But for a lot of people, like in this case, just until 20 seconds ago, me, like I don't care about the, all that stuff because it just doesn't impact my ethos. But I'm someone who's like, I'm pretty semi-guilty of like wanting this ethos to be pretty small and semi-ignorant.
Well, I don't expect anything different from France. Like that doesn't. None of it surprised me because it's a very liberal country. And so I go, all right, you did that,
right? But if what they're doing starts affecting our country, then it's a problem.
Sure, I don't know. I'm not sure how that factors in politically because right now they want the Statue of Liberty back. Like we've made them so mad. They're like, we want the Statue of Liberty back.
And I think too, like she doesn't care if you're an adult that can make your own decisions.
100%.
Yes, but the more digging she finds out, the more children are getting involved. And that's when you have to call it for what it is and bring it to light so that even if it's not affecting the U.S. in some areas that she's bringing up, it's a moral problem. Like you can't just keep having people in standing. You can't have them in management and they're doing these things behind the scenes. That's not right.
No, I have
because ultimately it will find itself in America.
It's already here in a lot of ways. I have long since felt and stated that like especially with the trans issues, that it got so far left wing and everything, the last 4 years, what we were talking about this today, like how Gavin came across some audio of somebody that's like teaching their son to be a man. It's like, hey, when I'm gone, you're the man of the house, and open doors for women and do these things. These kind of things that people wrote off as toxic traits of masculinity, that we've demasculated our societies, and we've said there's no gender, and there is gender, and we were created differently, and that's a good thing, but we vilified it for the last 4 years. And I think what happened is in doing so, we definitely hurt our society. But I had always said, if the left had not gone so far to go after like kids and gender affirming care with kids and been like so all in on let 5-year-olds determine their gender, they wouldn't have had the pushback that they had. But somebody did have to say, no, we won't let 5-year-olds do anything on their own because they're not built to do that yet, especially making these decisions. Had you stayed out of kids and just kept it as adults, figuring themselves out and doing what they're going to do, fine. But they always use suicide as the justification. Well, we're saving lives. It's not true. That's the problem with that. And so had they said like this, when you're like you're saying, Candace is, hey man, when you're 18, you're an adult and you want to change your job, that's you. I have nothing to say about that other than I disagree with it. And I have people in my life that I love dearly that I've had these conversations with, and I've had to say, and I'm not looking at Betty, I've had to say, look, I know you feel this way. I love you enough to say, I don't think this is how God created you, and what you're feeling, I don't think is healthy for you, and I think you need to deal with why are you feeling this. I've had those conversations with loved ones, and so for me, like having them do these things that are geared towards kids, somebody has to say no, and that's where we're at, right? And they wouldn't have had as big of a problem, but when they became the wild west of do anything you want and have neutral bathrooms and all this craziness.
But I think ultimately it came to women set up those rules of we have the same, and it's true, we are equal in some ways to men. We should be just as respected.
Absolutely.
But
equal, but different.
we live in a sinful world, a fallen world, and I think a lot of those rules or ideas got put into place with women's rights and stuff because men were taking advantage of their role, or they weren't doing their role, and
That's
so
fair.
women had to step up. I think it's a fall in what men should have been doing to begin with, and on top of that, like you said, you got to raise the boy and open the door for women and stuff. I think a lot of women have been hurt by men in their lives, whether that be a husband or a father, and they don't want to show that side of dependence or vulnerability towards a man. And so if you don't want to feel, that's what happens when you feel vulnerable, you could fight or flight. And a lot of these women, I think because of the women's rights, are doing the fighting instead and saying, you're not going to treat me like a woman because I'm no less than you.
Right.
By holding the door for me, you're saying you are better than me. And I've been victimized by your sex, and so I don't want to be that person anymore. And I think, too, that ultimately it just keeps going because there's just been a fall with men in general. Like I know so many single women that are great, and yet I don't know hardly any good single men,
Right.
And I think, too, that there's a fall with men in that so many boys are being raised in single-parent homes. We just read stats where it was like 78% of single-family homes or single-parent homes is the mom. And so if a boy is going to be raised by a mom and he's got sisters or whatever, that's the reason why we have, I think, so many gay men is because that's what they were raised around. They don't have a male figure in their life to look up to. How would they know? And I think eventually it's if it keeps going this way, it's going to end up where we're just going to be a society that dies in itself.
I think that you're right. Like I've never blame all of one thing with a broad stroke of that, but I think that there is a onus on men to own what we didn't do well. It's kind of like when unions came in. Unions existed because companies were severely abusing their workers. Unions had to come in to stop that, and they did. but then the unions became more powerful and they got it out of balance. It's the same thing here. You have horrible things like Me Too movements that are happening, not the movement happening, but the reason for the movement having to happen was that because men were abusing their power and abusing women. And it needed to be stopped. And it still needs to be stopped, you know? And so, yeah, there is an onus on men to be better, like 100%.
And I think ultimately, if you really dug down into it and you found these women that were passionate about women's rights, I think if you dug down into it, saw them as a little girl, I think ultimately we all want to have that male in our life that does lead the way.
Problem
I think
is they won't admit that, though. That's the problem. They won't admit that now.
But the thing is that
because that's how we're wired.
Right. But I think, the hard part is we live in a fallen world and men are sinful as well. And so to submit to someone who could hurt you, that's scary.
Sure, absolutely.
And so there is
versus
trauma.
just being like in charge of yourself.
Right. So there's trauma that comes with that. And there's a lot of, you're hoping for the best if you hitch your wagon to somebody, to a man. But if you say women's rights, we are one and the same. If you have to fend for yourself, you want equal rights because you want to make the same as men because it's only you. And you're too traumatized by what's happened to you in your past to want. And I get that. I get that. If you've got hurt from a male in your life, like why would you want to submit to another one? Yeah, that's hard.
I'm curious what you think about this, Rock. Okay, so I believe in equal pay for equal work, 100%. Like I think we are created equal, but we are different. Okay, so let's say you've got a guy that wants to do a radio job. Okay, and this guy's going to be there 24/7. He's living it. He's going to be there every time the doors are open. Every time he's asked to do something, he's there.
Single?
Yeah, he's single.
Okay.
Or no, he can be married, but he's just going to be there. You know, you've got a lady who has a family, and she's going to call out, days when her kid is sick or she couldn't find this and she's not going to be there today. And so her commitment to the product cannot be as much as this other person who's like, I will be there. I will come in even if I am missing a limb. Do you believe that they should be paid the same? Because you made a choice to have a family, and the guy is making a choice to not be at home with his family. He's making a choice to be at work. Should they be paid the same? Based on their actual work, not the job, but their actual input into the company.
It just depends on the... Yeah.
Well, it's hard to say.
I'm just curious. Yeah.
Give me an example. Like I know you're saying like a man and a woman that work at a radio station, but you're saying like for instance, Joy, who does our middays, like she's got 2 kids,
right? And
she's working part-time here, but she has to because her husband is a pastor,
right?
And those pastors don't make good money, and so it's sad that she has to even work to begin with. Like I see behind the scenes of what she does,
right?
And it's constant. She never stops, and so.
But should she be paid the same, say, as if I was doing her job, but I was here?
You're working part-time?
No, like even whatever the job is. Yeah, we're both doing the same job.
You should make the same amount an hour that she makes.
I disagree. Because if I'm going to be there all the time, and I'm never going to call in, and I'm always going to be the guy you count on, then I should be paid more.
It is tough because the assumption in...
Or if the roles were... If the roles were reversed, and I'm like, man, I really need to be with my family, man. I can't be here today because I just got to invest in my child's life. And she's like, no, I'll be there. Then she should make more. I think whoever's putting in more should be compensated higher.
But if the company is giving you that time, if they respect the balance of work-life balance, and they give you those comp days, or they give you those sick days, or they give you those, then that shouldn't matter. If you want to take time off to spend with your family because one is sick, the pay shouldn't even matter because the person that's giving more effort, like they're going to die at the microphone, right? Then they've got the same amount of benefits as the one that's taking them.
40-hour job.
You're choosing not to take those benefits,
right? But
the other one is choosing.
Right.
So it should
I would
matter.
value that person more that's choosing the company. Just like in a marriage, if you're choosing to be a partner that's engaged in your marriage, then I'm going to value you more than someone that's choosing, while you have the free right to not spend as much time with me or not go to movies with me or whatever. You have that right, but I'm going to love you less kind of thing. So if I'm running a company, I want people that are going to kill for me, kind of thing.
I can see, and maybe it's a difference in opinion on I really value, and maybe it's just because I'm a woman.
That's what I'm wondering.
I really value the work-life balance. I think it's crucial.
Right.
And I know that you're on the opposite end,
Correct.
and maybe that's because you're a guy. I don't know. But to me, this is not where I want to live and breathe and die.
Well, it's not equitable in the sense that I don't have to raise the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
My wife would be doing that, and I would be here,
Right.
And so it's not fair in that thing. But then it's like, it's also, well, you chose to have multiple kids, or what have you. That's on you. And so you're a product of your choices.
But I guess what I'm saying, too, is like that's looking at, like, for instance, if you're married and let's say you're younger and Marty's like, well, I want another kid.
Sure.
Well, is that her? So now she has to take a step back because she chose to have another child with you?
Yeah. If my wife was at a job and she chose to have another child, I would be like, well, that's our choice. We're making that. It's going to make you less marketable at this job. I would understand that.
But it takes a team effort to raise a child. So do you think that it should solely land on her responsibility to raise that child because she's the one that wanted it?
No. That's different. The home is what you guys do. Like if you use Joy and Hunter, they should be balancing that out between themselves and whatever works for them in their life. Like that's between them, But what the byproduct of that is what you can put into the company. That's a byproduct of the decisions you make in your personal life. And with every decision you make, there are sometimes consequences. You might not make as much. You might not be able to do as much because you made these choices. I chose to have 1 kid versus 5 kids, and I was able to do different things because of that choice.
But I think every couple is different. Every marriage
100%.
is different. So if that
100%.
works, it could be that you marry a guy who is like, I see my job as a job, not a career. It's where I pay my bills and I give it what it's worth. But once those 8 hours are up, I'm coming home so I can spend time with my family.
And there are people that do that.
I respect that man.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic.
Good for him.
But there are men like you that are saying, no, this comes first. I need to be there. This is where I'll live, eat, and breathe.
Yeah.
But if that works for Marty,
Right.
if that works for Haley, then great. But I don't think that those expectations should be put on another man.
I think the expectation of the job is what kind of dictates it.
I think the
and
boss should dictate what's expected.
If you don't want to work in that world, then you go somewhere else. If that's what the expectation is, then you just work somewhere else.
Yeah.
And if it's like every company has its own culture. And some cultures are live, eat, breathe this place. Everyone's in it to win it kind of thing. I've been at radio stations like that where you wanted to be there. You wanted to be the best. You wanted to spend as much time as you could there because it was a really great vibe too, because you were with other people that were doing that. And the people that didn't want to do that, they were gone quickly because they weren't part of the culture. Ramsey's another place like that. Ramsey does preach work-life balance, but when you're there, you're working hard. And there are people that don't fit into that culture at all because they want something else, And so to me, I'm like, we want to make this blanket thing like, oh, it's equal this, equal that. But like equity is the enemy of greatness a lot of times. And so you can make something so equal that you stop being great, because you have people that are on different pages, with that. And so to me, I look at it and I said, well, like if this is important to you, then you find a radio station that aligns with those values that you have set for you in your life, kind of thing. That's the freedom that's the free marketplace,
But I think ultimately that expectation comes from higher people than us.
Sure.
So
I have the expectation on myself. Like no boss is ever going to come to me and say, I need you to work harder. I've never had that said to me in my entire life because I'm already functioning higher than their expectation, and that's what I set for myself. Now, I hold everybody that works with me to a higher standard. I hold Gavin to a higher standard. I hold you to a higher standard. And as a result, you guys are both fantastic.
But I think that there are expectations from probably other radio stations or probably other employees here that they have different expectations on themselves that you would never put on yourself. Like, for instance, their expectation is to have a healthy work-life balance. They're like 8 hours and I'm done.
Yeah, I would never have
And then
that.
their expectation would also be, I want to keep peace and I'm not gonna rock the boat.
Yeah,
I want to keep the. So I'm just saying, like, everybody's different. Not everybody's the same.
Oh no,
and that I think that's okay.
Oh,
And
I do too. I do too. I used to vilify that, but I realized that as long as it's not affecting me, that's their place.
Yeah.
But if that person is trying to work with me, it's not going to work well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
like
for
the company
sure.
has the freedom to choose like how much
Right.
like you guys, like when you're a salaried person, like that's, it's not just a morning host gig that's
all
just
day.
a generic pay that you are a salaried person and you're worth X amount to them and they pay you that much and you go above and beyond and you are worth that much because you go above and beyond. But if they said, okay, we're just, like, 10 years from now, like, let's just do a morning show host.
Yeah.
That's just like anybody can apply to this. They're not a salaried person or contract. I'm getting that messed up in my head. But like, if you're a salaried person, 40 hours a week, like they are paying you to be the 40 hours a week payday person as opposed to like, oh, we're paying you to be this. You then get to choose what you get to be.
Yeah.
In that
I
scenario,
think everybody
beyond that.
has a different motivation, and their motivation could be, this is a job to pay the bills so that I can do what I love.
Right.
Or it is, this job is what I love and I do it and then I go home.
But I think you will admit that over the course of time, I have morphed, been forced to morph by you specifically to understand boundaries and to give you those boundaries. And like before...
And you're welcome.
Yeah, thanks. No, but before... And a lot of that, though, too, came from finding a new respect for you. When we shifted your position a few times here, and you stepped up and you rose to the occasion and you became like a full member of the show, that I respect your opinion and value you and see you as an equal. Like when you stepped up, when you were asked to do more and you did more and you stepped up and you did great at it, then I saw you differently. And so you earned that right with me to say, hey, I do need some boundaries here, whereas other people I wouldn't give that option to. And like Gavin coming in new, Gavin didn't have the same set of boundaries that you had after, working with me for 10 years prior to. Gavin had to earn those places as well, you know? And so I definitely try to keep weekend work off of you guys, and I do it, but I keep it off of you. I don't have that same expectation unless I have to have something,
But I think having those expectations on yourself, that's fine if that works for you.
Right.
It does make it harder, though, for you with working with others, because ultimately everybody at the station, while you may not directly work with them,
Right.
at some point they do have some say in the work that you do here on the show.
Right.
And so if they want to go and take a lunch break, or they work from home on certain days, well, that can rub you the wrong
100%.
way, because they're not living up to your expectations,
Exactly.
but they don't have to answer to your
Correct.
expectations.
And so I just have to deal with it.
Yeah, so
Right.
that can be tough for you.
Yeah, it's frustration. Like when we went to Africa, I brought Jake, but I'd gone the year before with Jake, so he knew what to expect. Like he knew what he was getting into, and that guy rose to the occasion. That guy worked like I work, and I worked him to death. And we did great work.
And he's been really sad and crying and depressive ever since.
Oh, yeah, he's got a therapist now.
Interesting.
No, he had 2 before.
Also, too, I would like to point out that all of this to be said, be careful who it is you spend. I think there's healthy boundaries in the company that you give your heart and soul to.
Sure.
Because if you're working nonstop thinking that it's going to pay off, and you realize with that company it's not going to pay off, and they could care less, and they'll replace you the next day.
Right.
Then there's boundaries, or you just need to find something different.
Well, that's the thing too.
Or adjust your expectations.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I had a conversation with our boss where I think it jarred him just a smidge, and I said, I don't work for Way FM, and he's like, I think he almost took it like I was being combative. Yeah, combative. I said, I work for me. Like, you're never going to have to tell me to work more. Like, I'm always going to work because I work for my own pride. My limit and my expectation is set by myself. It's not set by the company. And you should be thankful that I've set it higher than the company.
Because it's within the company. It's still, because everything you do and everything you give is still to the company.
Right. So I've always viewed, no matter what radio station I'm at, I've always viewed myself as like an independent contractor, and I work for me. And the day that I no longer want to put time in is the day I quit.
Off-putting. I get that can sound off-putting.
Right.
But like once you back it up, like if you no one will ever question the work ethic.
Yeah. Like, and so they saw that on the last trip, and it was like everyone was talking about how great the content was that we cranked out while we were there in a third world country, doing work that people would do when they got home and spend a week building, and we were building in a night, and constantly. It's like that to me gives me life though, because it's like good. I'm operating at a higher level than other people.
And while people may never tell you have to work harder, you need to live up to expectations.
Yeah,
I would say no one has to tell me, hey, you need to sit down and eat and drink something.
Right.
Whereas they would have to with you.
100%. They'd be like, hey, you should probably take a break. And I'll be like, I'll do it when I finish. When I get finished with this, that was the thing I never understood about Betty on trips before, is like she would get hungry. And I'm like, just work through it. We'll eat in 2.5 hours. And she's like, I can't. And then she would get mad because her body's different. Like she needed it or else she would crash. And so for me, I get past it and then I eat,
but
your body
then scares me.
Yeah. I mean, we're wired differently.
Well, he's also dealing with a kidney stone.
Right. Yeah. I know. But I used to see that though as like not wanting to get the work done. Yeah, and it's like it wasn't that she physically needed to do that. And when I finally started to understand that. And understand you
and throw chips at me
you. Open your mouth. I know she's almost passed out. Pour water in her mouth. Let's get her back up. But yeah, that changed like how I worked with you too. Because I do respect the heck out of you. Let's do birthdays, and this has been a long one. We got to do it fast.
Corrine wants to wish her sister Bissie, 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 a happy birthday. Said she's a varsity high school volleyball coach in Reedley, California.
Nice.
And our team won state this year. We have both been potties for over 10 years. She's the best sister and a true woman of God. Happy birthday, Bissie.
Love it.
Katie is celebrating a birthday today. She said, I've been a potty for 11 years. And now I'm married as of last year, pregnant with our first and turning 25.
Congrats.
Oh, my gosh.
Dang, Katie,
Getting
slow
her
down.
done. Getting her done.
And then Jessica celebrates a birthday tomorrow. She said, I'm turning 32 and I absolutely love y'all's humor. Quick question. I recently got braces and she's turning 32. She recently got braces.
Heard those are cool again.
Yeah, they're coming back in style. Did y'all need braces? And if so, what advice would you give to someone with braces?
Yeah, we kind of talked about a little bit of this the other day. Like I had braces and it was horrible. Like you just constantly have sores in your mouth from like cutting them and stuff like that.
No
I would get Invisalign 100% if I could do it again.
Well, she didn't.
Too late. Sorry, should have done that. There's my advice.
I would say you couldn't have picked a better time to get braces because, like Gavin said, we talked about this yesterday. It is a trending style to the point where kids are buying fake braces on Etsy just to make it look like they have actual braces. You couldn't have picked a better time. So, girl, live it up.
Well, let's do this. Weekend plans. We'll just cover what we did on Monday because we were running really late. And but the weekend plan that Betty has, she won't be here Monday because she's doing the Women's Reclaim event. Very last minute to get your tickets on this.
Text Reclaim to 91979 if you're around the Nashville area. We would love to see you. It is only for women, not men.
Yep.
And so we would love to see you and your girlfriends come, but text the word Reclaim to 91979 and we would love to see you there.
So I guess all that equality stuff we talked about was garbage earlier. Like that we are different. Okay, because men are not allowed. There you go. Reclaim to 91979 and we will see you on Monday.
Growing up in poverty has never been easy for children, but with the added challenges of the pandemic, conflict, and natural disasters, families around the world are facing an unprecedented food crisis. Unfortunately, those who are already hungry are now even more desperate. But by sponsoring a child through compassion, you can help provide life-sustaining essentials such as food and clean water. And with your compassionate support, that child can not only survive, but also flourish. You can find out how and choose a child to sponsor when you click on the compassion banner at wayfm.com.